route as Tom Brady. But I think when it comes to on the field, I think Antonio Brown's going to feel a level of being indebted to Tom Brady for, constantly reaching out throughout the offseason when he wasn't with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And this is a guy that's going to play with a chip on his shoulder. Listen, the last time we saw Antonio Brown playing meaningful football, he was the best receiver in the National Football League, and there was no question about that. So I think you're going to see a hungry guy that's coming in, and I don't foresee Antonio Brown being a major headache or anything transpiring off the field, because I think he sees what the opportunities are with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with Tom Brady, and that's a team that's going to be competing for a Super Bowl championship.
When you look at it, and you look at Antonio Brown, and much like Damien's saying, I want to concentrate on the football field, because everything that transpired off the field, we already know. We know those issues. We know he's in court. He's dealing with it with his legal team, and they'll figure it out. And the responsibility relies on the organization as a whole to keep him out of those issues off the field. And he's going to be productive on the field. There's no question about it. You look at him with the Miami Dolphins. When he was at the New England Patriots, they played the Miami Dolphins. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniel put an emphasis on making sure that Miami knew that he was on the football field. I don't see where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers aren't going to do the same thing. Byron Leftwich is going to make sure, and Tom Brady's going to make sure, that if he's playing 20 to 25 to 30 plays, that when he's on that football field, those plays count. He's doing something. He's just not standing out there like a cardboard cutout, and all of a sudden he's not paying attention to what's going on around him. He can lose interest by doing that. So you want to make sure that he is an intricate part of what you're doing on an offensive side of the ball, because they certainly can utilize him and need him down the stretch with Chris Godwin in and out of the lineup, Mike Evans being your big play wide receiver in the red zone, Gronkowski being that big play wide receiver in the red zone, and Scotty Miller doing what he does. And you add AB to the mix, a guy who clearly was on a path as a Hall of Fame type wide receiver prior to some things happening in Oakland and getting his career somewhat derailed. Now is back on track. If you go back and you look at Pittsburgh, when Bruce Arians had him in Pittsburgh, Bruce didn't coach him on the offensive side of the ball. He was primarily a special teams player. He didn't become a real viable receiver for the Pittsburgh Steelers until Todd Haley took over. But Bruce knows him enough and knows the people in the Pittsburgh organization to understand who Antonio Brown is. And I think Antonio realizes the mistakes that he's made, and he can't cost himself and do those things anymore, or he will be completely out of the NFL this time around.
Two things. Number one, how weird was it to see Bruce Arians without his Kangol on? That completely threw me, seeing that whole thing talking about Antonio Brown, number one. Number two, I don't know what was a better selling job. Tom Brady convincing Bruce Arians that Antonio Brown should join his football team, or selling Mrs. Tom Brady that Antonio Brown's going to be aboard in the Brady household. So Tom Brady's got that kind of stroke to make that work. I think he's completely responsible for AB's success or failure, because Tom Brady has let it be known we have the kind of football team right now that we can go get it in the NFC. We got a bunch of filthy McNasties on defense, led by David and also Devin White, they're outstanding linebackers. But now we need to relieve some pressure on Mike Evans and Rob Gronkowski, and as well as Tom Brady. You bring in Antonio Brown. I don't know what his pitch count is going to be, but it's going to be sufficient enough that the Saints are going to have to honor him when he's on that football field. And Keyshawn, you're exactly right. We know exactly what's gone on in the past with Antonio Brown. That doesn't mean that that's not going to be a storyline that people are going to watch, especially in the locker room of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You can have Tom Brady speak up for you. You can have Russell Wilson speak up for you in Seattle. The same thing Lamar Jackson, Baltimore, speaking up for Antonio Brown. But until you're actually around that guy in the locker room, there's always going to be kind of, okay, we know he can play, but will he go off the rails, and will he derail what we're trying to do here in Tampa Bay? And Antonio Brown clearly understands this is his last shot to stay in the National Football League. His talent has allowed him to get another chance to be in the National Football League. But if he runs afoul of himself again, then he's not going to get that opportunity. Tom Brady was willing to risk that, knowing kind of talent that he brings to the table, to make this a better football team, a more explosive offense to help him, and also that running game. So whether this works or not, it's going to be at the feet of Tom Brady, because he convinced his coach and his team he's worth that risk despite the past. And he also convinced his wife, hey, it's okay, honey, to have him in the in-laws house, because he's going to be a good tenant with us as he plays with us for Tampa Bay.
Here's what I would say about all that. I think Tom Brady understands. He stayed with Tom Brady for a short period of time in New England. So inviting him into the home, I think that they got that covered. I think the house is big enough where they're going to be able to get their separation and get away from one another at times. But when you talk about on the field or in the locker room, players know what they got in the locker room. They understand. They get it. They've trained with him. They've been around. He's from the Florida area. They work out together in the offseason. So they understand who Antonio Brown is. They understand what makes him tick. They understand what will make him mad at the same time. So when you bring people inside of a locker room, guys that are there have been around him, whether it's in New England, whether it's in Pittsburgh, whether it was in college, or just working out. So they have a clear understanding of who he is. I never worry about bringing an outside guy into a locker room, even though we're winning football games, because he can't derail us from doing anything. He is on a game-to-game basis. The moment that he gets out of line, the first thing we decide to do as a team is move on without him. You saw the New England Patriots do it. They were ready to embrace him. They did embrace him. But the moment that the allegations hit, they said, bye-bye.
And listen, Key, you know this just as well as I do. When you on the outside looking in, particularly during the football season, it's a cold, cold world out there. So AB been looking at everything, looking at all these guys balling and playing, and that will give you some act right when you're in a situation like that. So AB coming to Tampa, right the road from where he's from, where he lives at. This is a prime opportunity, and to be reunited with Tom Brady. I mean, what more could you ask for if you're Antonio Brown? That's why I don't worry about the off the field. Okay. A guy like Antonio Brown has been humbled. He's been humbled by sitting on the outside, sitting on the couch, watching TV as all these other guys have been playing football games. Now he has the opportunity to play on the field. Guarantee he's ready to show up and show out for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Well, D. Wood and Keyshawn, I hope you gentlemen are extremely right, because I think you two can agree with me on this. I'm tired of the future unlived when it comes to Antonio Brown. When you have that kind of ability, you should be in the National Football League continuing to help football teams. And I'm not asking him to be perfect. Nobody should ask him to be perfect. But when you've had the kind of story that he's had, being a low-round draft choice, being one of the best receivers of your generation, I'm tired of seeing Antonio Brown not being in the National Football League. And I hope he's more tired of that than anybody else. Because if he's not, then once again, it's going to be like, yep, we gave him another opportunity and he couldn't do it. I don't want to have the conversation of the future unlived when it comes to Antonio Brown not being in the NFL, when his talent shows that he's supposed to be there, but his off-the-field persona has kept him out of the NFL until this point when he plays on Sunday versus Tampa Bay.
Well, this is definitely a huge opportunity for Antonio Brown. He's a 7-time Pro Bowler, over 11,000 yards receiving, 75 touchdown receptions in his 10-year career. So it is his opportunity to lose. He knows better than to squander it. You do not disrespect the Bucs this time around. You don't disrespect Tom Brady this time around. And you most importantly do not disrespect Giselle living in her home. We all know that. All right, guys, thanks so much for that conversation. We have a lot more to get to here on First Take. We're sticking with some football.